In 2017 and 2019, Jordan Peele wrote and directed 2 horror films, Get Out and Us. Both films are notable commercial and critical successes. As a film auteur, Jordan Peele creatively uses the genre of horror to tell 2 unique, allegorical stories that reflect social issues of the present-day United States. The auteurism of Peele is reflected through his artistic control in aesthetics and the message of the films. Get Out uses the aesthetic of classic thriller movies. Get Out is heavily influenced by Rosemary Baby and Stepford Wives, which all focus on the theme of paranoia and panic. Similar to those 2 films, Get Out also invites audience to follow the investigative character into their deep panic and paranoia. Inheriting a similar look, Peele uses shots that follow the protagonist's subjective mind to include audience in the investigation, allowing us to generate sympathy. On the other hand, Us follows the aesthetic of classic home invasion films. The film first establishes a safe house that the character feels comfortable staying in. As the story progresses, the antagonists slowly break into the house. Different from typical home invasion horror movies, Us does not simply plot the story in the house of the Wilsons. Peele uses the whole above-ground world as a house that all people feel safe living in. And then the antagonists, who are the doubles or the tethered of each person, invades above-ground world. In addition to the control of aesthetics, what really defines Jordan Peele as an auteur is his artistic intent of creating social allegories. Get Out is a social allegory towards racism. As the story reveals the true intent of the Armitage family, we see how racism is directly portrayed.
Gordon was a professional golfer for years.
Oh, you kidding? I do know Tiger.
And the art dealer talks if Chris' talent is his eyes, not his artistic perspective or vision as a photographer. Get Out is a social allegory towards racism among the American liberals and the seemingly progressive white Americans. On the outside, they seem to respect people of color, but racism is deeply imprinted in their identities. Us is a social allegory toward the fundamental class issues and inequality rooted in American society. The story of the film focuses on the tethered coming above ground to attack their counterparts. In the film, Peele does not directly address who is the true villain that created those tethered. This is a creative choice of indicating that the creation of the tethered is a symbolic indication of the oppressed people. The tethered, in this sense, is the biggest victim, and the villain is the evil that is embedded in our reality, which is the inequality that creates class separation. In another word, the villain is ourselves.
Lived a privileged life of an American, grew up middle class, had an education. I've always been fed, I've always had shoes. I've neglected what that privilege means in terms of the people who have suffered and continue to suffer so I could have it.
Sometimes people who live a comfortable middle-class life ignore the people who suffer. But what if those people are you, and will you choose to ignore yourself? Peele is conveying to the audience that such ignorance of other people's suffering has created a long-lasting inequality that divides the country in half. Without a doubt, Jordan Peele is an auteur in filmmaking. But more importantly, he's an auteur not only in cinematic aesthetics, but also in telling meaningful stories that reflect the critical issues in reality. Peele uses a familiar form, horror, to defamiliarize racism and inequality in our consciousness and emphasize the severity of those social issues.